I never thought someone could hate the sound of breathing. Until I met Mr. Calder, my landlord. The first time he knocked on my door, it was midnight. I was half asleep when his fist pounded so hard the hinges shook. I opened the door, confused. He stood there in his navy robe, his face tight like he had swallowed a lemon. "Louise," he said, "you breathe too loudly. I can hear through the walls." I blinked at him. "Sir, I was asleep." He leaned closer, like he was sniffing for trouble. "Exactly. You snore. It bothers me. Stop it." I wanted to laugh. Instead, I swallowed my anger. I can't just stop breathing. He pointed a bony finger at me. "If you keep disturbing my peace, I'll evict you." That was my introduction to the most dramatic landlord on earth. The next day, he slid a noise warning notice under my door for breathing. By the end of the week, he accused me of walking too loudly, closing the fridge with unnecessary force, and thinking aggressively. Yes, thinking. I started to feel like he wasn't just picking on me. He was trying to break me. But I wasn't the kind of girl who backed down. If he wanted a war, he was about to learn who he was dealing with, and he would regret every single step he took. The building itself wasn't special. Just an old two-story place with creaky pipes and paint that peeled like old sunburn. But the rent was cheap, and I needed cheap. I moved in after losing my job at the bakery, where I worked. A huge shopping mall opened nearby, and the bakery closed in weeks. So there I was, broke, desperate, and trying to rebuild my life. I chose that building because it looked quiet. What I didn't know was that Mr. Calder lived right above me, like some guardian of misery. A few days after the breathing incident, I overheard him yelling on the phone. His voice shook the ceiling. "I don't care. Get me the money," I said today. Then a loud crash. Something about his tone made my skin prickle. This wasn't just landlord anger. It sounded like fear or desperation. Later that night, another note appeared on my door. "You shower too long. Water bill increasing. Keep it under 90 seconds. I held the paper, stunned. This man wasn't just strict. He was unreasonable, controlling, and honestly, kind of scary. Then things escalated. One afternoon, I came home to find him standing in my living room, inside, without permission. He didn't even pretend to feel bad. "I heard noise," he said, "checking for damage." Nothing was damaged, except my trust. That was the moment I decided. If he wanted to fight, I'd fight smart. Much smarter than he could ever imagine. I needed proof, and I needed a plan. I wasn't going to fight him with anger. I was going to fight him with intelligence. The first step? A tiny camera. I bought it with the little money I had left. It was disguised as a phone charger. I plugged it into the wall facing my front door. If he entered again, I'd catch him. Days passed quietly, almost too quietly. But on the fourth day, it happened. At 11:47 a.m., while I was at my part-time cleaning job, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the camera app. There he was. Again, he walked inside like he owned the air. He checked my mail, looked inside my kitchen drawers, even sniffed my laundry. It was disgusting. But the worst part? He wasn't alone. Another man entered, tall, heavy, with a thick chain around his neck. They whispered, but the mic caught enough. "Needs to pay soon." "Relax, Victor," Calder said. "I'll get the money. The tenant is a good target. Easy to push out." My heart froze. A target? For what? They left after a few minutes. But their words burned into me. There was something bigger going on. Something dangerous. And I had just become involved without knowing it. If Mr. Calder thought I would just let this slide, he didn't know me at all. The game had changed. And now I was playing to win. That night, I didn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every creak in the building felt like another step he might take toward my door. But fear wasn't going to save me. I needed more information. So I started studying him. I watched when he left the building, when he came back, who he talked to, and how long he stayed inside his apartment. He had a routine. He left at 9 a.m. sharp, returned at 10:30 a.m., left again at 3 p.m., came home at 6 p.m. But what he did during those hours? Mystery. One afternoon, I followed him, carefully keeping distance. He went straight to a small office building with a faded sign, Calder Real Estate Solutions. I waited outside and saw people coming in shouting, leaving angrily. Something was off. Then a woman stormed out. Her eyes were red from crying. "You okay?" I asked. She wiped her tears. "Your landlord is a scammer. He stole my deposit, lied about repairs, threatened to evict me for complaining." My stomach twisted. So it wasn't just me. He was doing this to everyone. And whatever debt he owed to that man named Victor, he was planning to pay it by squeezing innocent tenants. But he made one mistake. He chose the wrong tenant to bully. I wasn't just collecting evidence now. I was looking for a way to end him. Legally, smartly, perfectly. The next morning, an eviction notice was taped to my door. I stared at it, stunned. Reason: excessive breathing and disruptive presence. Even by his insane standards, this was unbelievable. He wanted me out fast, probably take my deposit and rent the room again to someone else. Someone he could squeeze harder. But he didn't know I had hours of footage showing him entering my home illegally. He didn't know I had testimony from other tenants. He didn't know I had started a digital trail of every scam he had pulled. Still, I acted calm. I knocked on his door. He opened it with a smirk. "Leaving already?" I pretended to be scared. "Can we talk?" I don't want trouble." He grinned wider. "Good. Pay an extra $200, and I'll forgive the noise complaints." There it was. The greed, the trap, the perfect evidence. I kept my voice small. "Can you put that in writing? Just so I don't forget the details." He wrote it down, his signature sloppy but clear, a written demand for a legal payment. I walked back to my room with the paper in hand. My heart raced, but not from fear, from victory. He thought he had trapped me, but I was the one setting the trap. And soon, it was going to snap shut on him harder than he ever imagined. I spent the whole evening organizing my evidence. I had a folder on my laptop labeled Project Breathe, a joke that made me smile even when things felt scary. Inside the folder were videos, screenshots, voice recordings, and photos of every crazy thing Mr. Calder had done. But I needed something bigger, something that tied all his crimes together. That's when I noticed a strange thing on the eviction letter. The lawyer's office he claimed to use didn't exist. I Googled every part of the address, even the street name, and nothing came up. Fake lawyer, fake forms, fake threats. Suddenly, everything clicked. He wasn't just a bad landlord. He was running some kind of illegal operation, maybe stealing deposits, maybe faking repairs, maybe worse. And he wanted me out because I was starting to see behind the curtain. The next day at 3 p.m., I got the chance I was waiting for. He left the building like always, but this time he was carrying a thick envelope. He walked fast, nervously checking over his shoulder. I followed him again, staying far enough that he wouldn't notice me. He headed to the same office building as before. But instead of going inside, he met with the tall man, Victor, in the alley behind it. They talked in low voices, but I heard one sentence clearly. "If you don't pay by Friday, I'll take the house." My pulse jumped. House? Was Calder in danger of losing everything? This was bigger than I thought. I hid behind a trash bin, watching them. Victor had a heavy presence, like someone used to getting what he wanted by force. Calder, however, looked smaller than ever, sweating, shaking, almost begging. "I'm getting the money," Calder said. "I just need a few more days." "You said that last week," Victor replied. "You owe me $15,000. You pay, or I start collecting in other ways." Calder's voice cracked. "Please, I'm trying." Victor stepped closer. "Friday. No excuses." Then he walked away, leaving Calder frozen in place. I didn't know whether to feel sorry for him or disgusted. He had made his choices. He had hurt people to cover his mess, and he had tried to push his problem onto me. On the walk home, my mind raced. If Calder really owed that much, then everything he'd done, illegally enter my apartment, fake eviction threats, trying to get extra cash, was because he was desperate. But desperate people do stupid things, and I needed to move fast. That night, I printed out copies of every piece of evidence I had. One set went into a locked drawer. One set I hid in my pillowcase. And the last set, I stored online so nothing could accidentally disappear. Then I wrote a note and placed it on my fridge. If something happens to me, check the folder. A little dramatic, maybe, but after seeing Victor, I wasn't taking chances. This was no longer just about breathing. This was about survival. The next morning, Mr. Calder acted strange. When I passed him in the hallway, he didn't insult me. He didn't shove another warning paper into my hands. He didn't even look angry. He looked terrified. His eyes darted around like every shadow might jump at him. He tried to speak, then stopped. His lips trembled. For a second, I saw a human being, not a villain, but I stayed quiet. Kindness wasn't on today's menu. Later that afternoon, I heard him pacing upstairs. Heavy, fast steps. Then a thump. Then silence. Then pacing again. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I heard him on the phone. Yes, she's leaving Friday. I'll get her out. Don't worry. A pause. No, I don't care if she cries. I'll handle it. My heart dropped. He was talking about me. Friday. The same deadline Victor gave him. He was planning something. Something forceful. Something bad. I needed a new plan. One that wouldn't just protect me, but would stop him completely. So I visited the woman I'd helped outside his office. The one he scammed. Her name was Anita. She invited me in with a tired smile. When I told her everything, she gasped, "I'm not surprised. He ruined so many people." I asked her one question. "Do you want to help me stop him?" Her expression tightened. Then she nodded. "Tell me what you need." My plan was growing, and it was almost ready. Anita wasn't just a victim. She was a fighter. She had kept every message, every receipt, every fake repair fee, called her, charged her before kicking her out. Her box of evidence was a treasure chest. Together, we made a list of other tenants he had mistreated. Many had left in anger. Some had left in fear. But all of them had a story. We reached out, slowly but carefully. By evening, we had 6 people willing to talk. 6 people who had been cheated. 6 people who wanted justice. But the most important part was what they revealed. Calder wasn't just a landlord. He ran a whole side business, renting out the same rooms to multiple people, keeping deposits, then making up reasons to evict them before the month ended. He had made thousands, and all of it was illegal. My brain lit up like fireworks. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was a takedown. But I had to be smart. If I moved too early, he'd strike back. If I waited too long, Friday would come, and who knew what he'd try? So I created the perfect trap. A meeting. Saturday morning. Every victim. Every piece of proof. All organized and ready to hand straight to authorities. I even prepared a digital file labeled, "Full report, Calder scam operation." By the time I finished, it was almost midnight. Tomorrow, I thought, everything starts. But I didn't know. Tomorrow would be worse than I imagined. Chapter 10, 245 words. I woke up to a loud bang. At first, I thought something fell in my kitchen. But the sound came again, harder, deeper, like someone kicking wood. I jumped out of bed. My front door was shaking. Before I could react, a voice boomed from the hallway. "Open up, Louise." Calder. He was early. Too early. I grabbed my phone and hit record. He kicked the door again. "I know you're in there. You think you can mess with me?" My heart raced, but my anger burned brighter. He knew. Somehow, he knew I was planning something. I didn't open the door. "You can't come in without permission." He laughed. A broken, hysterical laugh. "Permission? You don't understand what's happening. Girl, you think you're smart? You think you can ruin me?" He sounded out of control. Then came the worst moment. He tried the doorknob, and it turned. I must have forgotten to lock it. The door swung inward, and Calder stumbled into my living room. His hair was messy, his eyes wild. He looked like someone drowning in panic. "Delete everything," he said. "All your little files." Now. I backed away. I'm calling the police. He stepped closer. Go ahead. I'll be gone before they arrive, and so will you. Every nerve in my body screamed danger. This wasn't about rent anymore. This was desperation. He lunged forward, and that's when everything changed. When Calder lunged, I moved on instinct. I ducked behind the table, and he slammed into the chair instead. It toppled over with a loud crash, buying me just enough time to run toward the hallway. He grabbed my wrist, but not tightly, more like someone trying to hold on to the last piece of control in their life. His breathing was rough, fast, uneven. "Louise, listen," he said, voice shaking. "You don't understand what Victor will do if I don't pay him. He'll take my whole house, my life. I need the money. I need it now." "So you're stealing from people?" I shouted. He swallowed hard. I didn't have a choice. "That's not true," I said. "You just didn't want to face the consequences." His grip loosened. For a second, I saw him breaking, cracking like old glass. But the moment didn't last. He reached for my phone. "Give it to me?" "No." I slipped out of his hold, ran to the kitchen, and grabbed the only thing within reach, a frying pan. Not to hit him, just to keep distance. He froze when he saw it. Not scared, just tired. "This is your last warning," I said. "Leave." For a long moment, we stared at each other. Then he backed away slowly, muttering, "You'll regret this." And he stormed out of my apartment. My legs almost gave out. But one thing was clear. Friday was going to be worse than I thought. The minute the door closed, I locked it twice and slid a chair under the handle. My heart wouldn't stop racing, but I forced myself to think straight. If Calder was willing to barge into my home, he could try something even more desperate next time. So I took action. First, I copied every file again, saving them in a secure cloud. Then I texted Anita, "Emergency. Meet me at the cafe. Bring everything." I shoved my backpack full of documents, the charger camera, my laptop, and left the apartment as fast as I could. I didn't trust him not to come back. At the cafe, Anita arrived in minutes, setting a box of evidence on the table. "What happened? You look like you ran a marathon." I told her everything. Her eyes widened. "Louise, this is serious. You can't stay there." "I know," I said, "but we're close. We just need to survive until Saturday." She leaned in. "Then we need more backup." Together, we called every victim again. 3 agreed to come early. 1 offered her brother, who worked with a local housing rights group. Hope flickered, but then something strange happened. As we were leaving the cafe, a black car rolled slowly past us. The window lowered just enough. Victor sat inside, staring at us, not smiling, not angry, just watching. The car rolled away. My stomach twisted. Calder wasn't the only problem now. Anita insisted I stay at her apartment for the night. I didn't argue. There was no way I was sleeping in the same building as Calder after what happened. Her place was small but warm, filled with soft yellow lights and the smell of peppermint candles. I finally felt the tension in my shoulders start to melt, but peace never lasts long in stories like mine. At around 1 a.m., there was a knock on Anita's door. 3 slow taps. We stared at each other. She whispered, "I'm not expecting anyone." We tiptoed to the peephole. A man in a hoodie stood outside. He wasn't moving, just standing there, still as a statue. I held my breath. Another knock, slower this time. We didn't open the door. After a few silent seconds, he walked away. His footsteps echoed down the hallway until the building fell quiet again. Could that be one of Victor's guys? Anita whispered. "I don't know," I said, "but someone knows I'm not home." We barely slept. By morning, my phone pinged with a message from an unknown number. "Stop digging. This isn't your fight." Anita gasped. "They're trying to scare you." But fear wasn't enough to stop me. If anything, it made me more determined. Someone like Calder didn't deserve power. Someone like Victor didn't deserve freedom. And someone like me, I didn't back down. Not now. Not ever. Friday arrived faster than I expected. In every other story, Friday would be the day everything goes wrong. And honestly, it tried. I returned home with Anita beside me. We walked through the building's entrance like soldiers entering enemy territory. Every sound felt suspicious. Every shadow felt dangerous. When we reached my door, I froze. The lock was scratched. Someone had tried to break in again. I whispered, "He's getting desperate." Inside, the apartment was untouched, thankfully, but the air felt thick, like bad intentions were hiding in the walls. I unlocked my laptop and found something that made my stomach flip. A notification. Attempted unauthorized access blocked. Someone had tried to enter my files. Anita leaned over my shoulder. Calder? Probably, but if he knew what was inside, he wouldn't try to delete it. He'd try to stop me completely. I packed everything again. I no longer trusted anything in that apartment. At 4 p.m., Calder came home. I heard his steps on the ceiling, slower than usual. He paced like a trapped animal. Then, for the first time since I met him, I heard him cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just a broken sound. Anita whispered, "Do you feel bad?" "A little," I admitted, but stopping him is still the right thing. Because even if he was scared, he had scared so many others. And justice had to go both ways. At sunset, everything exploded. I stepped outside to meet Anita's brother, but as soon as I closed my door, the hallway lights flickered, once, twice, then shut off completely. Darkness swallowed the corridor. A cold wave washed over me. "Anita?" I whispered. "I'm right here," she said, grabbing my arm. Then footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Slow, heavy, intentional. My chest tightened. A silhouette appeared at the far end of the hallway. Too tall to be Calder. Too broad to be any tenant I knew. Anita whispered, "That's not him." The figure walked closer, but not fast. He moved like someone who wanted us to feel every second of fear. Then a voice drifted through the darkness. "You should have stayed out of it, Louise." "Victor." My heartbeat thudded in my ears. He stopped just a few steps away, close enough for me to see the faint shape of his chain glinting. "Calder is done," Victor said. "And you? You're making things messy." "I'm telling the truth," I said, forcing my voice not to shake. He chuckled. "Truth doesn't matter if no one hears it." He stepped forward, but before he could come closer, the hallway lights snapped back on, and standing behind Victor was the last person I expected. Calder. His eyes were wide, his face pale, and what he said next changed everything. Calder looked terrified, not angry, not wild like before, just scared in a way I had never seen. "Victor, stop," he said. His voice cracked. "Leave her out of this." Victor turned slowly, like someone annoyed by a fly. "You finally grew a spine?" Calder didn't step back. "She didn't do anything wrong. This is between you and me." Victor rolled his shoulders. "Everything is between me and anyone who owes me money. And you? You owe more than you can ever pay." Calder swallowed hard. "I'll fix it, I swear. But hurting her won't help you." Victor smirked. "You're only trying to protect her because she has the files." My stomach tightened. Victor stepped toward Calder. "Did you forget who put you in that apartment? Who covered you when the inspectors came? You think you can switch sides now?" Calder's hand shook, but he stayed still. "I'm not switching sides. I'm ending this." That's when Anita grabbed my arm. "Louise, look." Down the hallway, 2 more people appeared. Tenants. Then 2 more. They peeked from doorways, gathering silently. Some held phones. Some held small tools like brooms or wrenches. They weren't attacking, but they weren't hiding either. A small crowd forming, watching. Victor's eyes flicked around. Calder whispered, "I told them." Victor's jaw clenched. The balance had shifted, and he knew it. Victor lifted his chin, scanning the hallway of witnesses. Tenants who once trembled under Calder's rules now stood tall, united. It wasn't a riot, just quiet resistance. "Move." Victor ordered, but no one did. One tenant, Mrs. Adeyemi from the 2nd floor, stepped forward. "We're done being scared of you," she said, holding her phone up. Everything is recorded. Victor's nostrils flared. You think this will protect you? It already has, she replied. I could feel the tension like a string pulled tight. Victor looked back at Calder. You brought them together? You! Calder's voice was barely above a whisper. I'm tired of this life. I want out. Victor took a step forward, but I found myself moving too, standing between Calder and him. My legs trembled, but my voice didn't. You can't silence all of us, I said. He stared at me for a long, chilling second. Then he smiled. Not a friendly smile. A dangerous one. You have no idea who you're dealing with, Victor said softly. You think this ends today? Another phone appeared. Another tenant stepped forward. A wall of witnesses. He hesitated. That hesitation was everything. Anita whispered, We need to get downstairs. The housing rights people are waiting. I nodded. As Victor noticed us moving, he reached into his pocket. My breath caught, but he didn't pull out anything dangerous. He just pointed at me with a single finger. This isn't over. And he walked away. But this time, he was the one retreating. We hurried down the stairs with the tenants following behind like a shield. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hold a railing. Outside the building, a small group waited. Anita's brother, 2 volunteers from a housing rights group, and the 3 victims we had called earlier. They carried folders, USB drives, and written statements. When they saw us, Anita's brother rushed forward. We heard yelling, Is everyone okay? For now, I said, but Victor knows everything. He nodded weakly. Good. Then he knows we're not hiding. We spent the next hour organizing the evidence under the streetlight. Pictures, videos, lease scams, fake repair fees, illegal eviction notices, everything. Calder stood a little distance away, head down, hands in his pockets. He looked like someone who had finally broken free from chains, but still felt their weight. I walked over. You really told them? I asked. He nodded. Someone had to. I caused enough damage already. You can still fix things, I said. He gave a sad laugh. Maybe this is the last thing I get to fix. Before I could answer, one of the volunteers approached. We called the district housing office. They're sending someone tomorrow. Tomorrow, the day everything would blow open. But when we turned toward the street, the same black car from yesterday rolled slowly to a stop. Not speeding, not hiding, just waiting. My stomach dropped. Victor hadn't left. He was circling. The black car idled at the curb, its engine humming like a warning. The windows were tinted too dark to see inside, but we all felt the eyes. The volunteers stepped in front of us. Stay together, one whispered. He won't try anything with this many witnesses. But I wasn't so sure. The car door opened halfway. Just halfway. Enough for a voice to slip out. Tomorrow won't change anything. Victor didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just spoke with quiet confidence, like someone reading a fact from a book. Then the door clicked shut, and the car rolled away again. Anita gripped my arm. He's trying to make you crack. But instead of fear, something else rose inside me, anger. He had messed with my apartment, my peace, my safety. And now he was trying to scare everyone around me? Not anymore. We go to the police station first thing in the morning. I said, no waiting, no hesitation. Everyone nodded. We packed up the evidence and moved back inside the building, sticking together until each person reached their door. Calder stayed near the lobby, leaning against the wall like a guard. When Anita and I got to her apartment, she whispered, Do you think he'll try something tonight? I wanted to say no, but I couldn't. We stay awake in shifts, I said, just in case. We locked the door, sat on the couch, and waited for morning. It felt like the longest night of my life. Morning didn't feel like morning. It felt like a bright spotlight on everything we had been running from. We gathered outside the building. Anita, her brother, the volunteers, the victims, and Calder standing awkwardly at the edge of the group. The streets were quiet, sunlight stretching across the pavement like a promise. Ready? Anita asked. No, I admitted, but that's why we're doing it. Together, We walked to the police station just 4 blocks away. Every step felt heavy, but also strong, like we were finally moving toward an ending instead of away from danger. Inside, the officers listened, really listened. We handed over the files, the videos, the statements. They took everything seriously, especially when they saw Victor's name connected to past warnings. One officer looked at me. "You did the right thing coming forward. This helps more people than you think." I exhaled shakily. Then the door opened. A familiar chain glinted. Victor walked in with 2 officers beside him, not guarding him, escorting him. His eyes locked on me. Cold, sharp, furious, but he didn't say a word. The officers guided him past us and into another room. Calder whispered, "He didn't think you'd actually do it." "I almost didn't," I admitted, but now it was too late for fear. As the door shut behind Victor, I knew one thing. This wasn't the end of the story. This was the beginning of the fallout. The room felt heavier after Victor disappeared behind that door. Even the officers looked tense, like they knew this case wasn't simple. One of them returned with a clipboard. "We'll need each of you to give a full statement," he said. "This may take a few hours." No one complained. We were tired, scared, frustrated, but ready. Anita squeezed my hand before going in first. Her brother followed. Then the volunteers. The tenants. One by one, everyone spoke. Calder was last. While I waited outside the interview room, he sat across from me, hands tapping nervously on his knees. "You know," he said quietly, "Victor wasn't always like that." I didn't respond. He sighed. "Doesn't matter now. I want to fix things. If they ask about me, I'll tell them everything. Even the parts that make me look bad." "That's the right thing to do," I said. "And you," he asked, "are you prepared for what comes after this? Victor won't be happy." I swallowed. "Maybe, but I'm not doing this alone." That's what changed everything. Before he could answer, an officer opened the door. "Louise, your turn." My legs felt like rubber, but I stood. Inside the interview room, a single camera pointed at the chair. A folder sat on the table. "Take your time," the officer said. "Start from the beginning." So I did. For the first time, I told the entire truth out loud. And once the words left my mouth, there was no going back. I talked for over an hour, telling the officers everything. From Calder's first angry message to Victor's shadowy threats in the hallway. The more I said, the lighter I felt, like the weight I'd been carrying for weeks was finally peeling off. When I finished, one officer closed the folder and nodded. "You were brave to come forward." Brave. I didn't feel brave. I just felt tired. Outside the room, Calder waited with his head down. As he walked in for his turn, he paused at the door. "Louise." "Yeah. Thanks for not giving up on this." Then he went inside. We all waited in the lobby, sitting in a loose circle. No one talked much. It felt like waiting for a storm to break. 20 minutes later, Calder came out, pale, but somehow relieved. "Did you tell him everything?" Anita asked. "Everything," he said softly. Before he could say anything else, an officer approached us. "We've gathered enough to begin. Victor will be held overnight. You all may go home, but stay alert. We'll contact you if we need more information." Held overnight. That meant we had at least one night free from the fear of seeing that black car again. But as we walked out of the station, a strange quiet washed over the group. Not relief, uncertainty. "What happens now?" I asked Anita's brother. He shook his head. "Court, hearings, investigations. It's just starting. Just starting." A small chill crawled up my spine. The real battle hadn't even begun. By the time we returned to the building, it was late afternoon. The sun cast long shadows across the entrance, stretching like dark fingers across the ground. I hesitated before going inside. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Tenants stepped into the hallway, whispering, asking questions. They had heard about the police visit. Some looked worried, others hopeful. Mrs. Adeyemi approached me first. "My dear, is it true? Did they take him?" "For now," I said. She let out a breath she'd been holding for years. "Good. It's about time." Calder stood a little behind me, avoiding everyone's eyes. Some tenants glared at him. Others looked confused, unsure how to treat him. One man stepped forward. "You helped us today, but don't think we forgot everything else." Calder nodded, accepting the words without arguing. I went upstairs with Anita. My apartment felt strange, like a museum of bad memories. We checked every corner, every drawer. Nothing was missing, but the air still felt wrong. While we packed the last of my things, because I wasn't staying another night here, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. For words, "He's not alone." My chest tightened. I showed it to Anita. Her eyes widened. "Do you think it's one of Victor's men?" "Maybe," I whispered. "Or someone else who works with him." She swallowed. "Louise, we have to leave. Now." For the first time since morning, fear returned. Not just for me, but for everyone involved. We rushed out of the apartment with my backpack and the last few boxes. Down the hall, Calder was talking to two tenants, trying to explain himself. When he saw my face, he stopped mid-sentence. "What happened?" I showed him the message. He stepped back, eyes widening. "That number? I think I've seen it before. One of Victor's runners uses it." Anita paled. "So they're still watching us?" "Probably," Calder said. "Victor has people everywhere. Delivery guys, neighbors, even maintenance workers. He pays them to keep their mouths shut." The tension in the hallway tightened like a rope. Anita's brother called. "We're outside. Hurry." We hurried down the stairs, moving as one fast, nervous group. At the entrance, a white van waited for us. Not suspicious. Just the volunteer team helping us relocate for safety. But before we reached the door, something made me stop. The mailboxes. One of them, mine, was slightly open. I walked closer, heart pounding. A single envelope sat inside. No stamp, no name, just a thin black line drawn across the front. A warning, a boundary, a threat. Anita whispered, "Don't open it." I opened it. Inside was a single note. "Taking Victor down won't save you." My breath hitched. Calder looked around nervously. "We need to go. Now." We rushed into the van, slamming the door shut behind us. As it pulled away, I looked out the window and saw a man standing across the street, watching silently. Not Victor. Someone new. The van drove fast, turning block after block until the building disappeared behind us. Only then did the volunteer in the front seat speak. "You'll stay at a safe apartment tonight. No one knows the address except us." I nodded, clutching the note in my hand. My fingers shook. A new threat, a new player, someone who wasn't Victor but connected to him. Anita leaned her head on my shoulder. "We'll get through this," she said softly, "even if they try to scare us." Calder sat in the back, staring out the window. "If they're following us, it's my fault," he whispered. "I pulled Victor into all of this. I worked for him. I spread his lies." "No," I said firmly. "Victor chose what he did. You choosing to help now is what matters." He didn't reply. The city lights blurred past as the van reached a quieter neighborhood. The apartment they brought us to was small but clean, with a lock that looked strong and untouched. We carried the boxes inside quickly. Before the volunteers left, one of them pulled me aside. "Louise, just be careful. Victor has bigger connections than we thought. You're on the right side, but the right side isn't always the safest." When they left, the apartment fell quiet. We locked every door, checked every window, drew the curtains. As I curled onto the sofa, exhaustion hit me like a wave, but sleep didn't come, because one last thought crawled its way into my mind. If someone else was watching us, then the real danger hadn't even shown up yet. The night dragged on, slow and heavy. Every creak outside made me tense. Anita stayed close, whispering updates on our escape plan, but sleep refused to come. Calder was quiet, lost in thought, staring at the wall. I tried to remind myself that Victor was behind bars, at least for now. That should have been enough, right? But then the thought hit me. Victor had connections. Someone watching us could alert him or his allies. I couldn't let my guard down, not yet. By dawn, the sunlight seeped into the room, softening the tension. I sat up and stretched, feeling the weariness in my bones. Anita and Calder were still asleep, but I couldn't stop thinking. Maybe it was time to do more than hide. I whispered to myself, if he wants to fight, we'll fight smarter. I started writing a detailed plan. Who to contact next, how to protect the tenants, how to make sure Victor's influence ended completely. Each line on paper felt like reclaiming power. By the time Anita woke, I had a strategy mapped out. She read it over silently and finally smiled. You've thought of everything. I nodded. Almost everything. But we can't do it alone. We need the tenants. And we need proof Victor can't touch. Calder stirred, groaning. Louise, you really never sleep, huh? No time, I said with a small grin. Not until it's over. The fight wasn't over yet. But this time we were ready. The first step, secure the tenants. We spent the morning making calls, meeting one by one and explaining the plan. Fear still lingered in their eyes, but determination grew too. They weren't just victims. They were witnesses, allies, and voices that mattered. Calder, surprisingly calm, helped coordinate. Each phone call, each reassuring word to a tenant felt like stacking bricks for a wall against Victor. By noon, everyone agreed to meet at a neutral location, a community center downtown. It was crowded enough to be safe, but private enough to speak freely. When we arrived, I could feel the weight of hundreds of tiny stories. The stolen deposits, threats, intimidation, lies, all adding up to a single truth. Victor couldn't hide anymore. I stood in front of the group. We're here today because he made us afraid, because he thought we wouldn't act. But fear doesn't work anymore. He can't silence us. Not together. Whispers of agreement spread. Heads nodded. Phones raised. Documentation shared. Even Calder looked proud. We'll do this right. Legally. Fairly. But firmly. Anita squeezed my hand. You're amazing, you know that? I shook my head. We all are. For the first time, I felt real hope, because the fight was no longer just mine. It belonged to all of us, and together we could win. The day of the court hearing arrived faster than I imagined. Outside the courthouse, supporters waited, tenants, volunteers, even a few neighbors who had quietly suffered from Victor's schemes. Inside, the courtroom felt tense, charged with anticipation. Victor sat at the defendant's table, trying to look confident, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. He wasn't used to being outnumbered. When our turn came, we stepped forward together. Statements were read, files presented, videos shown. Each piece of evidence hit harder than the last. Victor squirmed in his seat. Calder spoke first. He admitted his mistakes, explained how he'd been pressured and misled, and showed his willingness to cooperate. His honesty carried weight. Then I spoke. Clear, calm. Every word counted. I told the truth. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't plead. I just spoke for all the people Victor had tried to silence. The judge listened intently, flipping through the thick stack of evidence. There was no hesitation in her voice when she addressed Victor. Your actions have harmed many. Justice will ensure you are held accountable. Victor's expression hardened, but it was too late. His web of fear and control was unraveling. As we left the courthouse, sunlight broke through the clouds. Calder and I shared a glance. Relief, victory, a sense of freedom we hadn't felt in months. It wasn't perfect. Some battles still remained. But the worst, the fear, the threats, the shadows were finally lifting. Back at the safe apartment, the tenants celebrated quietly. It wasn't a party, more like relief slowly sinking into their bones. Some laughed, some cried, some just sat and let the quiet wash over them. Anita and I walked to the balcony, looking out at the city. The streets felt normal again, almost peaceful. I can't believe it's finally over, she said. Not really over, I said. But the hard part? Done. We stood up. We fought back. And that counted for something. Calder joined us, handed me a cup of coffee. You were amazing, Louise. You didn't give up. I smiled. Neither did you. He shook his head. I wish I hadn't waited so long to do the right thing. You did it when it mattered, I said. We watched the sun dip lower, painting the skyline in shades of gold and red. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel fear lurking behind every shadow. Victor's reach was limited now. The tenants were safe. The evidence was secure. And the network of people we built, strong enough to protect each other. I took a deep breath. We've won a victory today. But more importantly, we've proven we're not disposable. No one can push us around anymore. Anita nodded. Not even Victor. And for the first time, I believed it. Weeks later, the final hearing ended. Victor faced serious consequences. Fines, restitution, and a suspended sentence that included strict monitoring. He couldn't intimidate, threaten, or manipulate again. Calder met with the tenants one last time, apologizing, explaining, and offering to help in ways that were meaningful. Some forgave him, some didn't. But everyone felt closure. Anita and I returned to my apartment. It was empty, quiet, but filled with sunlight. The air smelled fresh, unburdened. I unpacked the last of my things and paused by the window. Outside, life moved on. Kids laughing on the street, neighbors chatting, a dog running after a ball. The city felt alive, ordinary, safe. I realized something. Fear had been temporary, but courage had lasting power. One person alone could stand up, but together we were unstoppable. Calder walked over. "What now?" he asked. "Now." I smiled. "We live. We rebuild. We make sure no one else has to go through this." He nodded. "I'd like that." Anita appeared behind me. "And I'm never letting you face danger alone again," she teased. I laughed softly, the sound of relief washing over me. Outside, the sun dipped behind the skyline, golden and unstoppable. Shadows would always exist, but we had proven that courage, truth, and unity could outshine them. For the first time, I truly felt safe. And this time, it wasn't because someone else protected me. It was because I and all of us together refused to be afraid. The end.